Another key feature is reading. Reading is very important, and to set aside a time, I think at least an hour if one can, every day to read. That should not be your quiet time. There needs to be something in additional to the quiet time. So if you travel by tube or train, you can incorporate that reading time, not your quiet time, but the reading time into that time. So if you travel an hour by bus, you can have an hour's reading on the bus, although you also need to be aware as you're reading. So you need to have an hour's reading time. Reading is fundamentally important because it's the development of the imagination. And the imagination is connected to the creativity, and the creativity is connected to the spirituality. Without imagination, you don't have creativity, and you don't have spirituality. So when you are reading, you're imagining worlds as you read. So the African has said, the African is a fool if he has said in his heart that he should not read. What is there in books for me to read? That's a foolish African who doesn't read, because that's the way in which we imagine a better time, a better place, a better world. Without imagination, we remain exactly where we are or deteriorate. So we need to read to develop our mental faculties, our spiritual faculties, and we need to write too. Keeping a diary is a fundamental thing. Keeping a diary of your experiences, your emotions, day by day. It becomes something that your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your great-great-great-grandchildren will read. Oh, what was Mum, Papa, great-grandfather, great-grandmother in 2016 thinking and doing? Oh, they kept a diary of all their entire lives. That's wonderful. I can read about their experiences. That's primary history. That's very, very important. And what it does do is it sanctifies your life. It sanctifies your life as important, and it gives you, or it forces you to accept that your life is important and that your experiences are important and they need to be laid down for future generations. Part of what happened to us is to make us feel that our lives are not important. What we need to do is sanctify. Go away. Yeah. What we need to do is sanctify our lives. Part of that sanctification is to keep a diary, because what it does do is make us revisit our existence and revisit and say, yes, that was important, and keeping a record of that so that my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren can read and learn about that experience. And it's all of our experiences, not just the positive. I felt really depressed today. This was the reason why. There was no sun, it was raining, it was cold, blah, 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 blah. I didn't have any money even to get on the bus, blah, 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 blah. I didn't have the money to pay the rent. This is very important, because 100 years from now, your grandson or your granddaughter can read that and say, oh, that's what they were going through. I'm going through that now, but he got through it. She got through it. It's very important. Keeping a diary is very important. Communing with like-minded people is fundamentally important. Communing with people who may have their contradictions and issues, but still are relatively like-minded is fundamentally important. Obviously, one has to decide on the parameters of the communing, because you don't want to place your children in danger. Because some people are good spiritually to be in some environments, but they're not the kind of people you want around your children. But you still might want to be in their locale or around them. So communing with like-minded people is fundamentally important, because what it does do is normalize your thought processes. Normalizes consciousness. African consciousness is not some radical extremism. It's actually normal. But in the isolation of the self, one can actually think of it as abnormal. Especially because most African people will be telling you that what you are doing is abnormal, when in fact it's what they're doing which is abnormal. To be in and out of prison is abnormal. To be smoking crack is abnormal. To be praying to some deity that doesn't look like you is abnormal. These are abnormal practices that most other people on the face of the earth don't actually do. They don't do that. They know who their mother and their father is, right? And they pay respect to their mother, they pay respect to their ancestors, and they record their history, and they pay respect to what their ancestors did. That's why we commemorate the First and the Second World War. That's why we have a minute's silence on the 11th of November, on the 11th day of the 11th month, every single year, to pay respect to ancestors, because ancestor worship is part and parcel of British European society, and ancestor worship is part and parcel of every single society in the world. But when you as an African say, well, I need to pay respect to my ancestors, oh, that's juju, that's voodoo, that's wickedness, that's evil, when in fact it's actually normal. Africanus.